Welcome back. Here we are again. Excuse the camera, I'm using my phone for the time being. I've left my other cameras at home, so it's a little bit wobbly. But we're back and it is that time. So let me show you quickly where we're at first. Now, end of the last episode, you saw we were painting it. Resplendent in its grey high build primer. And you can see all the filler areas, all the white areas, are the areas where I've had to go back over it just to tidy it up slightly. And you can see there's a fair amount on it. And that is the whole point to getting this base coat on, is that it allows you to really see which areas are high, which areas are low, and start to get some proper shape in your panels. Now that's been over with a 40, a 120, and then a 400 on the DA, and it is now silky smooth. So the last job, the next job, now that I'm happy with the shape, is to get it waxed. Now, it ain't perfect. I'll say that from the off, it's not perfect. I can feel areas in there where it's still a little bit... But how long are you going to spend on it? I've already been doing this since November, and it's now almost March. I'm not a professional body shop guy. So how good do I want it? It's pretty straight. I would say it's like 95% of the way there if I had to put a figure on it. So it's pretty good. But I could spend the rest of my days doing it, polishing it back and checking for all the little low spots and making sure it's absolutely perfect. But the thing is, I just don't care enough to be doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's a huge amount of work. Polishing, sanding, flatting back. It just goes on forever. And at some point, you just got to pull the trigger and go, right, let's get on with it. As I say, I'm pretty happy with it. So what's the next job? So the next job is to make our mould. So we're going to be making this in a fiberglass mould, with the finished product being a fiberglass bonnet out of a fiberglass mould, because it's just the best medium to work with if you're doing this. I ain't going to make it out of steel, am I? So when we're talking about making moulds, from the very beginning we have to think about how many parts the mould needs to be in for this shape to release out of it. So we can't just do it in one, because, well, it won't come out. So we're going to need to make this, I'm planning on making it in about 4 pieces. So I'm going to have a seam going from the back corner all the way down to the front corner here. There'll be a flange. The same on the other side. This allows me to take that side of the mould off that way, and obviously the same over there. The top piece will be in a separate mould. Because this has an undercut, it can only go out of the mould that way, if that makes sense. So this top piece has to be separate. And then the front will be the 4th piece. That will come down here, along to the bottom, and up the other side, and then across that front lip of the bonnet there. And that piece will come out that way. So that's the plan, 4 pieces, front, side, top. That should give me enough sections to release it out of the mould without too many problems. Could you do it in one with that shape? Yeah, possibly. But I don't want to risk it, because if you make it in one, you lay in your final product and then it won't come out, you're up the proverbial creek. So for the sake of putting a few walls in, let's not do that. So 4-piece mould. Before, however, we think about putting any kind of gel coat, fiberglass or anything on this, we need to make sure this thing is slicker than snot. So we're going to use this stuff, which is our Miracle Gloss. And it is nothing more than wax. We need to get this onto a cloth. We need to buff over this thing, and we need to do it again and again and again. 5, 6, 7 coats of wax. Small bit on, buff it off. Small bit on, buff it off, until this thing is so shiny If you put a cup on it, it would just slide its way off. It really does need to be that waxed. Because again, if you don't, and you make your mould, when you come to take this out of the mould, it ain't going to come out. It's going to grab hold of the mould, you're going to have to hammer it, chisel it out, it's going to break your gel coat in the mould, and you're going to have to do lots of repairs, and it's just a nightmare. Getting two pieces of glass stuck together in a mould is not a fun experience. At the end, once all the final product's in, it's greased up, the mould's ready, you should be able to go around it with a rubber mallet, give it a dunk in a few places, and it should just pop and just release out nicely. You should not ever have to wrestle things out of moulds. It should just basically fall out of its own accord. So that's the next job. Wax, 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 wax. And this is going to get really old. About as old as constantly sanding and buffing. But the difference with the wax is it's a clean job. When you're doing body work, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who have done body work. It's a messy job. My clothes are so ingrained with dust. When I get home in the evening, my hair, what little hair I have, is absolutely full of, that's not dust, that's grey, but my hair is full of dust. My car is absolutely full of dust. I haven't even bothered cleaning my car because I know it's going to get full of dust again. The whole workshop in here is covered in dust. The floor is covered in 1/2 inch of dust. It just gets everywhere with the best will in the world. I try and save as much as I can by brushing it off into this bucket with this brush, and that is about 1 kilo in there that I've managed to save. As you can see, the rest of it is all over the floor, and it ain't my workshop. It's a good job there's a cover on the Porsche, because he'd be very, very upset. There's a 1980 something 911 in there, so he'd be very upset if his Porsche got covered in dust. But everything in here gets covered in a layer of dust. It's not the cleanest workshop, but it's not mine, and it's got a roof on it, so yeah, do what I can. So I can actually start to clean this place up a little bit, pull my weight, get it clean, throw away my sanding discs. I probably filled a bin bag full of sanding discs. That's how long it's taken. It is soul destroying. It feels like it's never going to end. It feels like some kind of weird purgatory thing. But now I can wax. Me again. We're back. We're working on the bonnet again. I say again, still. Not much change since last time, to be fair. She's had a lot of wax. See the nice shine in her now? Oh yeah. So she's had about 4 coats of wax so far, which you think would be enough for moulding, but they do say you generally want 5, 6, 7 coats when you're making the mould from it. When you come to actually wax your fiberglass mould, when you come to take the actual bonnet out of it, if that makes sense, you don't have to go quite so heavy, but because we're waxing on top of a paint finish, obviously paint is still reasonably porous, especially a primer. So the first couple of coats of wax you put on actually disappear into the primer. You buff it up the night before, you come back the next day and it looks matte again. So obviously the wax, the oils are soaking into the paint. So you're constantly building up on top of that to make sure that the paint is no longer absorbent. Because if the paint is absorbent and you put your gel coat on it to make your fiberglass moulds, it ain't going to come out again. It's going to crack off and it's going to split your gel coat and it's going to be a nightmare. And if you destroy your buck, which is the thing you're moulding from, and you destroy your mould, you've just wasted months worth of work. And again, I've been doing this since November-ish, maybe October. So to throw it all away now just because I haven't waxed it enough would be stupid, so let's not do that. So I'm going to keep waxing it. I'm going to give it another 3 coats. We'll get up to 7 coats of wax, and then we're just going to start slapping gel coat on, actually making the mould. However, until that time, I thought I'd have a little bit of a look at the light situation, because ultimately I need to know where I'm going with the lights. I don't want to get my thing out of the mould and then start from scratch and go, right, now let's think about grid and lights and wiring. I want to start thinking about it now, so that when I get my finished piece out of the mould, I can just go ahead and carry on working with it. So, our grill, as you already know, is set up for 5 3/4 inch lights. So your classic old 7-inch Lucas sealed beam, blah blah blah, normal lights that go in Minis, MGs, Triumphs, Land Rovers, etc. They're going to be a bit too big. When I was measuring this out and I was trying to get the sort of dimensions right to make it look right, to make it look Charger-esque, because that's the look I'm going for, if I made, excuse me, if I made the gaps big enough to fit a 7-inch bulb in, you know, the bulb would have come down to about here. And it was just too big, and I didn't like the look of it when I was planning it out. So I had to look around and see that you could get 5 3/4-inch lights as well. Harleys take them, for example. However, there's a problem. Because you can't just go and buy a load of 5 3/4-inch lights and then stick them into the final panel, into the grille. Because how are you going to put them in? You think about a car light bulb, it's just a dome with some pins on the back. How are you going to... They don't come with bezels, like a screw-in ring, like the Lucas ones do. You get the bucket. They just come as a bulb. So you need something to actually hold the light in. Now, of course, the other thing to think about is that I've been moulding this, working on it, as it is here. When it's actually on the car, it's not going to be this shape. That front is going to be much lower. So I don't know if this panel here is actually vertical. It is at the moment, but when it's on the car, chances are it's going to twist forwards. So if I just make a vertical panel, put it in behind the grille, and somehow bond the lights in, and then get it on the car, and your lights are all pointing straight down on the ground, or they're looking off in different directions like searchlights, that's going to be bad, right? Whilst I'm not planning on driving the car at night, it'd be nice if everything, you know, pointed in the right direction. So, as well as looking for lights, I actually need light brackets and holders as well, something to actually hold the lights in from the back, something that's going to give them adjustment, so you've got some little knobs on there you can twist to actually tune and adjust the lights in. Because like I say, I want it to be right, you know? And I found these on eBay. Come with. Ta-da! These are Jaguar XJ40, I believe, lights. They take a 5 3/4-inch Lucas bulb. Lucas. They come with a bracket on the back, which has your adjustment knobs. So now I can actually get these bonded onto whatever grille panel I put in, and then I know that I can adjust my lights properly. Obviously we've got one here and one there. Now the only problem with these ones is they are staggered. If you look at them from the top, we can see there's a good inch or so difference between here, because obviously on a Jaguar the front is curved, so the lights follow the curve. Mine isn't, mine's straight, which presents me with a problem. I can either have one bulb sticking through the grille and the other one just poking through, which I think is going to look a little bit weird, or I can try and adapt this bracket and actually make it straight, which is what I'm going to do. They also did come, by the way, with these rather natty bezels, which sit over the front. Probably the way around. I don't know. There we go. And they look something like that when they're on the car. So no good to me. So they'll be going on eBay. But we did get the lights. They've got bulbs in them. If the bulbs are any good, I don't know. No idea. The guy said they came off a fully MOT'd car that was working, etc., etc., but I don't believe that. So, you know, we'll have a look. Got all the bulb connectors, all the little rubber boots, and as I say, the bezels as well, which we don't need. So that's quite handy. So I've got the bulb connectors. So all I need to do is just splice my wiring onto these bulb connectors and we're good to go. One of them has 3 wires. Got 2 of those with 3 wires, and 2 of them have 2 wires, which I'm guessing is one's the extra is for full beam. So when you shine your full beam, only 2 of them will give you your full beam, and the other ones will just be normal lights and side lights. So I think they'll do the job quite nicely. So if I take one of these out and offer it up, just to give you an idea of size. Need another arm. Something like that, but further over. Something like that, you get the idea. It's 2 lights. So, in order to get these straight, what do we have to do? Well, we have this bracket at the back here, this Y-shaped bracket which attaches, which is welded here and here. And this is obviously an attachment point for the car, which we don't need because obviously these are going to be mounted in from the front. So that bracket needs to come off. Now with that bracket off, and this being steel, technically I could just hammer this flat, just hammer this shape out of it. But then of course the problem is going to happen is that these lights are going to be spaced too far apart. If I straighten that Z out, it's going to push the edge of this bulb over to about here. And I don't want a big gap between the lights. I want the lights right next to each other. I want all the middle of that grille to be grille. I don't want it to be loads of lights and a little bit of grille. I want a massive grille in the front. So, I think the most sensible thing to do, instead of trying to hammer it and bend it, would just simply be to cut it. Angle grinder, straight down there, and then we'll weld the two together. Doesn't matter if it's not entirely completely straight, because like I say, we've got adjustments on all the lights, that's why I got them. So I think that's what we need to do. Pull the bracket off, angle grinder out, chop choppity chop chop chop, bring them together, zip them back together again, and we should be something like it, and then we should end up with 2 lights in a line. Right, let's give it a go. Right, finally got the lights out. They were a nightmare. As well as being held in with the 2 adjusting screws, they also had a screw in the corner. As you can see, this one came out. This one got chopped out. They were just completely rusted in situ. But the lights are out now. They work exactly the same as the old 7-inch Lucas. They just hook on the corners, the 2 adjusters. And then obviously the bulbs go through the back. These ones have seen better days, but I'm sure we can clean them up. And they use whatever bulbs these are, H4s, standard automotive 3-pin bulb. Bulbs look good. I've tested one of them just by putting on a 12-volt battery. It lit up, so hopefully the bulbs are okay. It'd be nice if they're all good. Save me a few pennies. So this one, I've just chopped the brace off this one. Remember that had that Y-shaped piece on this one? So we've just gone through and chopped that off. So now what I need to do is just scribe a couple of lines in down here where we're going to make our cuts. Chop those 2 bits out, bring them together, and then I'll probably cut a small strip of steel just to gusset the join, or I may even just tack and seam it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Then once they're done, we can sort of scrape them all back, give them a good clean up, give them a lick of paint, make them all look nice. All the fixings about a good zap of WD, just to make sure they're all going to start moving nicely. And a taste of the blowtorch, obviously. So, it should be something like it. The other fixing points where we've got these studs on the back here, I'm going to leave those on for the time being until I've actually got the sort of bonnet in situ. If I don't want them, oops, and they're not taking up any space, if they're taking up space I'll cut them off. If they're not, I'll leave them on there, but they might come in handy for other fixings, so not going to be too hasty with the bits we chop off. But I do need to cut that, so let's just make a line and start chopping. We'll wing it. First one chopped. And that's a pretty good line if I do say so myself. So get the flappy wheel on that, clean it all back to bare metal, and then zip zip zip, get some weld on it. That's one done. Alignment looks pretty good with the old Mark 1 eyeball. I'd say we're good. Let's not look too closely at the welding, eh? Whoa. But she's in there, doesn't matter. It's not a structural part, it's only a headlight. As long as they're in about the right place, left to right, which they are. Couldn't have got them any closer. There's about 4 mil in there between the two. So I think that... Still hot. Ow, 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 ow. That's alright. Take the old girl out to the car. Yes. I think we're good. And obviously that's gonna, you're not gonna see any of the metal framework, obviously that's gonna be sat behind the plate that goes in there. All you're gonna see is those two headlights poking out through a hole. But I would say size wise we are pretty good. One and two. Sounds pretty straightforward. So now we've got our lights. Now, obviously still got more lights to add. That's only going to give us our dip beam and our full beam. I think you can get side light attachments, ones that go in through the case. I need to have a look at the bulb things, I'm not too sure. I don't think you can do that yourself. I think they either have them or they don't. If that's the case, then I'll have to find somewhere to locate a side light as well, and obviously we need indicators as well. So what I'm thinking is, obviously we're going to have one light here, one light here. So possibly having a small side light either the top or bottom between the two lights, or I can have one somewhere else, like in the bumper for example. And we're also going to need to put an indicator in here as well. So I'm thinking maybe the two big ring lights and then maybe have an indicator here and a side light here. I don't know, I haven't quite figured that bit out yet. And we're also going to have a side flashing repeater as well. We'll get a rectangular one which is just going to sit in here in line with the where the bumper is. So we'll have a rectangular orange flasher in there. I'll just find a generic flush fit one. And then something to go in the front. Or do we have the side lights lower? I don't know. Haven't quite figured that far ahead yet. But that's not bad for a quick morning's work, right? Lights are done. All cut, welded. They seem to be good. They just need the brackets cleaning up now. Quick lick of black paint just to make sure they look tidy from the inside and obviously rust proof them. We'll clean up the threads on the adjustments. There's a few bit of rust in the adjusters on the threads, so we'll get some WD on that. I bet they'll wire wheel, run them in and out a few times so all the adjusters run nice and smooth. And then obviously when we come to make the actual grille infill panel, if you like, then I can work out how they're going to fit in there from the back. Shouldn't be too hard. Drill holes, rivets, screws, bolts, whatever we got. Well, I don't think that'll be too bad. And I need to obviously find some grille material between the lights as well. I'm going to have lots of thin vertical chrome teeth all along the front between the lights. But again, that's all trim parts, we can worry about that afterwards. Side lights and things, like I say, I don't know. Don't really know what to do with that yet. I know you can get little button indicators, you know, little small ones for like old classic cars. I might find somewhere I can squeeze some of those in. My original plan was to get some of the LED 5 3/4 inch lights, like the I think the Harleys use them, but they do an LED bulb of that one. And as well as having the low beam and the full beam in it, it's also got an angel eye rim on it as well, which has got two colours. It's either got like a white, which you can use for DRLs, and it's got a yellow one which you can wire into your flashing circuit. So you don't actually need side lights or indicators. They all come in the same bulb. Now that would help me dramatically, because I don't need to put side lights and indicators in. The problem is they're 30 quid each, and I need 4 of them. So that's 120 quid on lights that whilst I use the indicators obviously, I'm not really going to use the other lights at all, because I don't drive it at night. It's a daytime convertible fun car. So I don't really want to go and drop 120 quid on lights I'm not really going to use. Or do I? I don't know. I haven't figured that far ahead yet. But anyway, that's the light panels done for the time being. So really I need to get my ass back into gear and start waxing. As I say, it's had 4 coats all over now. It is beautifully smooth. And you can, like I say, you can do the old cloth test. The old cloth just slides across it beautifully. So we know it's nice and polished. But we need more. More. Because like I say, you don't want it to stick in the mould, because that would ruin your day. So my future holds a lot more waxing, and I need to go and get a load more supplies now. Now we're going to need a load of gel coat. I'm going to need probably 5 litres of gel coat, because I've got to gel coat obviously the mould, and then when I take my bonnet out of the mould, that will need gel coating as well. Obviously we're just going to gel coat it in white, and then it'll get resprayed in paint code 19 Old English white, same as the rest of the car is in. But in case the paint chips, obviously the gel coat underneath is going to be white. You've got to gel coat it some colour, it may as well be white, right? So I need a load of gel coat. I need to get a load more fiberglass resin, polyester resin. Got a fair amount of fiberglass mat, so we should be okay for that. And I need some grilling pieces and that kind of thing as well. And then I can actually start to build up the mould and finally put an end to this saga that seems to be going on for months and months and months. But my choice, right? What can you do? So let's get back to it.